Powder up! Set your charge! Seat your charge! Ready to fire! Fire! Give fire!
And so in the fall of 1774, they passed a local law saying that they wished there would be people in the militia who could respond immediately to a call of distress of any kind. And they wanted volunteers to do this, and they hoped that 25 men would volunteer, which would be about half of the militia. The first liberty tree known in this country was an elm. It stood in Boston in 1765 during the hard days of the unfair traffic, the tariffs, the taxes, and the stamps, and the tea. It was near a tavern where a group of men who called themselves the Sons of Liberty used to meet. The Sons of Liberty wished to raise banners and signals that were higher than the elm tree under which they were standing. So they put up a tall pole at the roots of that tree and arranged it to run through the branches up into the open sky. That was the Liberty Pole of the Sons of Liberty. And this park here in Bedford has a Liberty Pole in memory of the first pole of 1765, which was the symbol of freedom. Today, the Minutemen cap that pole using a bright red cap. The tradition of using a limp, close-fitting red cap as a symbol of freedom was kept alive in the dark days of 1765 by Samuel Adams. Today, Bedford's Minutemen use it as a symbol of liberty and freedom for us all. So here in this place is a park established and dedicated by the people of freedom, people of Bedford, where an oak tree grew before the organization of the town. And we watch the pole being adorned with an ancient symbol of liberty by our Minutemen. Most of these pictures are about the Bedford Minutemen. They were organized under a proclamation by the selectmen of the town of Bedford, although those in other towns could have been organized at other times and in other ways. This happened in September of 1964. The selectmen wanted them to be a marching unit that would honor the Bedford flag and would commemorate the events that had happened in April 19th of 1775.
The original Bedford flag is in the basement in the vault of this library, and we're looking at a faithfully executed reproduction. Why the Bedford flag? Because the Bedford Minutemen carried it in the first battle of the Revolution. Where did it come from and when? Well, it was 100 years old before the Revolution started. The man in charge of the flag, the cornet of the company, was Nathaniel Page, and his descendant 100 years later was a Bedford Minuteman who went upstairs in the attic, got the old flag, and took it with him at 4 o'clock in the morning when they marched from Bedford to Concord and took it with him into battle at the Old North Bridge. So it is really the flag, the first battle flag of the United States. The Smithsonian Institution wrote a letter to this town back in the early 60s and asked if we were taking care of this flag. And at that time, I think the Friends of the Library and the town fathers decided to move it downstairs into the library, and it took armed guards and so on to move it, but it's down there, and we are never going to give it up unless you want to get shot here in Bedford. It is not going to move from Bedford.
The Bedford Minuteman Company conducts business around a variety of subjects, including parades, educational displays, performances, and social activities. Here, the company finance officer, Jim Boyd, who along with his family, has been an active participant in the recreation of the colonial way of life for many years.
In real life, I'm a marketing manager for an automated industrial equipment manufacturer located in Franklin, Mass. Well, actually, Adam and I have been doing Minuteman activities since about 1974. Adam was 4 years old at the time. I was with the Lexington Minutemen at that time. And the activities that drew me to it, I was a history major initially in college, and have a great deal of interest in the history of the United States, and especially the colonial period. And Adam and I joined the Lexington Minutemen in '74, was very active through the bicentennial, moved north up to Lynn, and then when I moved into Bedford, I joined the Bedford Minutemen. A great deal of the activities that we perform in center around music. I found that when I originally joined the Minutemen and acted as a musket man, I really needed the feel of the music to do a good job when I got out there and marched.
Music is an integral part of the company's activities. Herb Parnell, our music master, is a factory foreman and coordinator of all rehearsals and performances. John Filios, a retired Air Force colonel, plays the fife. Cal Carpenter, former captain of the company and bass drummer, is a school teacher. Paul Schumann is a dentist.
Well, I've been a dentist for over 15 years, and I've been located in the town of Bedford for over 12 years. I've been in the Bedford Minutemen for the last 4 years. I joined the Bedford Minutemen primarily because it seemed to be a very good social outlet for me. I take part in a lot of activities. I enjoy marching in parades. The cornet is in charge of the Bedford Flag. It is my duty to make sure that the flag, or more than one flag, is at the activities where that flag is needed.
Steve Manley, the company's newest member, is formally voted into the organization. He's escorted by Harry Anderson, the company's first lieutenant. Harry has just been elected to the rank of captain and will lead the Bedford Minutemen for the coming year.
By day I'm a carpenter, and by night I'm a Minuteman, occasionally baseball coach. Being the Minutemen, a number of items come to mind: the music, the muskets. There's a lot of things to do as far as the muskets, having to do with reenactments, shoots, and just a lot of work on them.
Lloyd Walker is one of the charter members of the Bedford Minuteman Company. Although retired, he's an extremely active individual in community affairs.
What do I do in real life? Mow the lawn, take care of my garden. I'm a member of the Bedford Minuteman Company, and I happen to be Sergeant Cannoneer. I'm also chairman of the Historic Commission in town, and I am just completing my 4th year in the Board of Deacons and my 3rd year as chairman of the Board of Deacons, the Congregational Church. This cannon is an exact replica, even to the formula, of the iron in the barrel of one which was salvaged out of Lake Champlain off Valcour Island. Redcoats came down on flatboats down the lake, and that is where the colonists under the command of General Benedict Arnold met the British in the straits between the New York mainland and Valcour Island and stopped them. This original was on a gondola named the Philadelphia, and it happened to be the flagship and under the command of General Benedict Arnold, and he probably fired this cannon himself. I have been, 1966, I was corporal, second in charge of this cannon, but since then I have been sergeant cannoneer and responsible for the cannon every year since '67, except for the years when I was an officer.
Other members of the company frequently assist Lloyd in caring for the cannon. Here, current Captain Dan Puffer lends a hand.
I am the Bedford captain of the Bedford Minutemen Company. It's a position I've held twice. It's a position of honor to me. Doing the history, it brings it alive. It makes it something that you can almost really put your hands on. I have been able, through doing the reenactments, I have gone all over New England, New York, down to Yorktown. I went on the Yorktown March. We went to Annapolis. We went to Paris. All of us are diversified in our employment, our jobs situation. We have people who are dentists and doctors and people who are farmers. People like myself, I'm an oil burner technician. I work for an oil company in Arlington. I install and repair oil burners and boilers. And so that's the beauty of it. You don't have to be a person with a degree or anything to become captain or anything. I'll save the company or any of these companies. They just elect the persons that they feel that will do the job for them.
The real spirit of the company lies in the Colonial Fife and Drum Unit. The recreated rope tension drums were originally used to signal colonial troops. The fifes help maintain morale. In the present, the unit is an active representation of the colonial spirit in Bedford, Boston, and throughout New England. Musicians strive for authenticity in the music, but their greatest enjoyment is in the enthusiasm and excitement that are generated in themselves and everyone who listens. Parade season, beginning with the Bedford pole capping and the activities which commemorate the beginning of the Revolution on April 19, 1775, and last throughout the summer, is the time when you are most likely to see the Minuteman companies of New England. Military units, including the crew of the USS Constitution, frequently participate. Involvement in the colonial culture is a family affair that these participants will carry with them all their lives. Some units, such as the 5th Middlesex, concentrate on precision in their music and are very formal in their presentation. Other units are less formal, dressed in the common working clothes of the 18th century. Some represent military units with great attention to detail. Even to their camp followers. The Minuteman companies of New England pass in review up and down the eastern seaboard, marching to the sound of the fife and drum and the sharp report of musket fire. Each member has special respect for walking in the streets and the fields where American freedom was born over 200 years ago. Among the most exciting events of the year are the reenactments of the opening battles of the American Revolution. Geographically, the largest of these is the retreat of the British soldiers from North Bridge in Concord, 18 miles east to Charlestown. Throughout the retreat, the Redcoats were harassed by the citizens of the towns through which they passed. Today it is much the same. The ragtag patriot colonists await the ordered lines of the King's finest. They wait impatiently, as they must have 2 centuries ago. In town after town, the British appeared. The long red columns must have seemed endless to the Patriots. At Miriam's Corner and at Bloody Angle, the British maintained their order of march despite nagging losses. The constant harassing fire and the tactic of shoot and run most certainly must have frustrated the disciplined British grenadiers and light infantry. Militiamen and common farmers came from surrounding towns to fight the retreating Redcoats. They took advantage of the terrain and cover they knew best, inflicting heavy losses on the King's soldiers. Fiercely proud citizens fought for their own lands and rights in a manner the British had not seen since the French and Indian War some 20 years prior. Patriots were more hunters than soldiers, in stark contrast to the ordered British columns. The colonists were on all sides of the redcoats, firing on them from every angle. Finally, the redcoats, exhausted by more than 14 hours on the march, began to break and run in disarray. The battle became a more personal affair. Small patrols skirmished to both sides of the retreat. Individual soldiers met their enemies alone. Still, in the chaos of the day, the British managed to keep some order, finally reaching Boston, leaving their dead and colonial dead behind. Nearly 100 died that day in 1775. In the reenactments, unlike the real battles, the dead arise at the end of the day. Frequently, they join their comrades in arms, the camp followers, and spectators in celebration. Redcoat and Patriot are no longer different. They are, in fact, members of a small and select group keeping history alive by living it. Sometimes gathering in taverns as old as the events they portray, the grenadiers and militia, farmers and colonial women join in good cheer, discussing 18th century life and sharing what they have learned with 20th century folk. Uniforms and costumes are compared in minute detail. Children seem particularly fascinated and are the favorite of the participants. The atmosphere is an indescribable mixture of the ancient and the modern, the scholarly and the rustic, the young and the old. It is often surprising. It feels like we are in the 18th century as participants become totally involved. In the times when we are celebrating the colonial way of life, it's easy to forget what century we are in. The passage of time seems to lose its meaning. The spirit of what we are reliving becomes reality.